I was never wanted, not truly, not by father, not by the world. Only Heathcliff ever saw me. But they took him away. And they took me to a house of polished floors and locked doors. I was split in two. One half wore silk and smiled. The other still ran wild through the moors, barefoot, unseen. Then I broke. And they called it fever, madness. But I was only trying to find my way back, to him. Even death could not settle me. I linger night after night, knocking softly. Let me in. I've been cold for so long. Let me in. I am Catherine Earnshaw, and I never left Wuthering Heights.
I was never wanted, not truly, not by father, not by the world. Only Heathcliff ever saw me. But they took him away, and they took me to a house of polished floors and locked doors. I was split in two, one half wore silk and smiled, the other still ran wild through the moors, barefoot, unseen. Then I broke, and they called it fever, madness. But I was only trying to find my way back to him. Even death could not sell me. I lingered night after night, knocking softly. Let me in. I've been cold for so long. Let me in. I'm Catherine Earnshaw, and I never left Wuthering Heights.
The groundbreaking novel Wuthering Heights by Emily Brontë has long captivated readers with its intense portrayal of passionate relationships and complex characters. Recent psychological analysis, as detailed in the research by Foroughi and Ramazani, reveals deeper layers to this literary masterpiece, particularly regarding the character of Catherine Earnshaw and her exhibition of traits consistent with borderline personality disorder, BPD. Their study provides a fresh perspective on the novel through the lens of modern psychological understanding and trauma theory. The researchers situate their analysis within the broader context of trauma studies, noting the increased academic interest in trauma and its implications, particularly in post-World War II literature. This framework allows for a deeper understanding of how Catherine's childhood experiences shaped her adult personality and relationships, contributing to behaviours that align with contemporary diagnoses of complex post-traumatic stress disorder and BPD. Catherine's psychological profile emerges from a backdrop of significant childhood trauma. The novel portrays her early years marked by neglect, abuse, and emotional instability within her family structure. The death of her father, combined with the general atmosphere of emotional deprivation at Wuthering Heights, created lasting psychological impacts that influenced her development and subsequent relationships. The manifestation of Catherine's trauma appears in multiple ways throughout the narrative. Her relationship with Heathcliff, intense and all-consuming, demonstrates the unstable interpersonal relationships typical of BPD. The famous declaration, "I am Heathcliff," reveals both her identity disturbance and her difficulty maintaining healthy boundaries, key diagnostic criteria for the disorder. This intense connection with Heathcliff, while emotionally powerful, ultimately contributes to her psychological deterioration. The research employs qualitative content analysis to examine the novel's themes of abandonment, emotional instability, and identity disturbance. This methodological approach allows for a systematic examination of how these psychological elements manifest in Catherine's character development and relationships throughout the narrative. Examining Catherine's behaviour through this psychological lens illuminates many of her seemingly irrational decisions. Her marriage to Edgar Linton, while maintaining an emotional attachment to Heathcliff, exemplifies the splitting behaviour common in BPD, the inability to integrate positive and negative aspects of people or situations. This internal conflict creates a constant state of emotional turmoil that drives much of the novel's dramatic tension. The study highlights how Catherine's abandonment fears, another hallmark of BPD, manifest in her relationships. Her desperate attempts to maintain connections with both Edgar and Heathcliff, rather than stemming from mere selfishness, can be understood as a traumatized psyche's survival mechanism. This perspective adds depth to our understanding of her character's motivations and actions. Catherine's identity disturbance, a core feature of BPD, is particularly evident in her social presentation. She oscillates between the wild, free-spirited girl of Wuthering Heights and the refined lady of Thrushcross Grange, never fully integrating these aspects of herself. This internal split reflects the broader theme of duality that runs throughout the novel and speaks to the complexity of her psychological struggles. The research draws attention to Catherine's impulsivity and self-destructive tendencies, which culminate in her famous delirium and death scene. Her refusal to eat and her extreme emotional outbursts can be viewed as manifestations of the self-harming behaviours often associated with BPD. These actions, while dramatic, become more comprehensible when viewed through the lens of trauma response and personality disorder symptoms. Particularly significant is the analysis of Catherine's conflicted loyalties. Her inability to choose between Heathcliff and Edgar represents more than a simple love triangle. It demonstrates the BPD characteristic of unstable relationships and the difficulty in maintaining consistent attachments. Her famous line, "Whatever our souls are made of, his and mine are the same," speaks to the intensity of her emotional bonds and her struggles with boundaries. The research emphasizes how Catherine's childhood experiences at Wuthering Heights shaped her adult personality. The death of her father, the emotional neglect she experienced, and the complex dynamic with Heathcliff all contributed to her psychological development. These early traumas created patterns of behavior that would persist throughout her life, manifesting in her adult relationships and ultimately contributing to her tragic fate. The study places particular emphasis on the feminist perspective in trauma studies, highlighting how Catherine's struggles reflect broader societal issues affecting women in the Victorian era. Her attempts to navigate social expectations while maintaining her authentic self-expression mirror challenges that remain relevant today. This feminist framework provides valuable context for understanding the societal pressures that exacerbated Catherine's psychological distress. The analysis incorporates Freudian psychoanalysis and its relevance to understanding characters' psychological motivations. This theoretical foundation helps explain how Catherine's early experiences and repressed traumas manifested in her adult behaviours and relationships. The researchers demonstrate how these psychological theories can illuminate the complex emotional dynamics at play in the novel. The analysis of Catherine's character through the lens of BPD and trauma theory provides valuable insights into Bronte's artistic achievement. It demonstrates how the author, whether consciously or unconsciously, created a psychologically complex character whose behaviours align with modern understanding of trauma responses and personality disorders. This suggests an impressive intuitive understanding of human psychology on Bronte's part. This psychological interpretation adds new dimensions to our understanding of Wuthering Heights. It suggests that Bronte's portrayal of Catherine was not merely a romantic heroine's tragic tale, but a nuanced depiction of psychological trauma and its lasting effects on personality development and relationships. The novel becomes a case study in how childhood trauma can shape adult behavior and relationships. The researchers' findings have implications beyond literary analysis, offering insights into how trauma manifests in behavior and relationships. Catherine's story, viewed through this lens, becomes not just a tale of passionate love, but a study in the long-term effects of childhood trauma and the development of personality disorders. This understanding can inform modern approaches to trauma treatment and personality disorder diagnosis. The article's contribution to both literary and psychological studies is significant. It bridges the gap between classical literature and modern psychological understanding, demonstrating how contemporary theoretical frameworks can enhance our appreciation of historical texts while providing insights into human behavior and mental health. This interdisciplinary approach enriches both fields of study. The research methodology, combining qualitative content analysis with psychological theory, provides a robust framework for examining literary characters through a clinical lens. This approach could be applied to other literary works, potentially revealing new insights into character motivation and development across different texts and time periods. This analysis of Catherine Earnshaw's character offers a compelling example of how literary analysis can benefit from psychological perspectives. It demonstrates that complex characters in classic literature often exhibit behaviors and patterns that align with modern psychological understanding, making these works valuable resources for studying human nature and mental health. The research concludes by emphasizing the timeless relevance of Wuthering Heights in understanding trauma and its effects on personality development. Through Catherine's character, readers gain insight into the complex interplay between childhood experiences, emotional development, and adult relationships, making the novel as psychologically relevant today as it was in the Victorian era. By examining Catherine's character through the lens of BPD and trauma theory, the researchers have provided a valuable framework for understanding both the novel and the broader implications of childhood trauma on personality development. This analysis enriches our appreciation of Bronte's work while contributing to our understanding of psychological trauma and its lasting effects.